it. Bet online, the game starts here. Well, this one starts at 6 Central in Gainesville. Max, don't have Ken Palm in front of me, but I would presume Florida would be a very small favorite, maybe a point or two by virtue of being in Gainesville, but maybe not. I could also see this being the other way, given where Alabama is in computers.
Yeah, it's probably going to be closer to a pick 'em than anything. I know that the computers are going to have Alabama favored by a point or two, but I have a feeling that Vegas will adjust and probably have it closer to a pick 'em. Either way, call it as close to a 50-50 game as you can get here. Looking at the matchup the first time, I was, as you were doing the ad read, I'm scrolling through Latrell Wrightsell news trying to find anything. I can't find anything on him. The latest news I have on Wrightsell is when Nate Oates said that he wouldn't be available for the Tennessee game. He said, "We hope to have him back soon." So take that for whatever you want to make of it. I don't know. I would call Wrightsell questionable for this game, and that's a big if, because they have definitely taken a step back without him on the floor. But if you look at the matchup the first time around, Florida played a great game. They're up by 10 deep into the second half. But even so, even with as well as they played, Alabama out-rebounded them by a wide margin. Didn't shoot the ball all too well, but that's just crazy for Florida to get crushed on the glass. They really got it taken to them by Alabama. So I would expect a different outcome on the glass this time around, which will probably favor Florida a little bit more. But you got two bounce back spots. So both teams are going to be playing with their hair on fire, trying to bounce back and finish the regular season strong. I know Florida was up by double digits in the first one, but man, I'd be pretty surprised if we get a double digit lead either way here, because I think this thing's going to be a scrap.
I mean, Alabama scored 98 last time, only hitting 8 threes and without Wrightsell. I know it went to overtime, but they still almost put up 100 points, even without those two constants that they've had in SEC play, making threes and having Wrightsell being one of their better three-point shooters and scorers at times. So, yeah, I mean, that's something to think about here. I mean, it was a pretty, I'm going to say this, understanding what the initial reaction is going to be. It was a pretty clean game in terms of how the game was played offensively. I know it wasn't a clean game in terms of one particular play. Just quickly to respond to that, I'm talking about actually the game style, the way it's played. And yeah, but I mean, we expected that going into it, because we knew that these were two teams that if they both turned it on, you could get, that kind of game where, there's a lot of, look at 38 offensive rebounds. How many games we've seen that in the SEC this year? We get, that kind of combined, but that's just how these two teams can play. And if they are missing shots, like both of them kind of did in this game from deep, they still found a way to get some extra opportunities and got to the free throw line and those kind of things. So, yeah, I don't think there's a lot that separates these two teams in terms of just their overall skill and, the upside whenever they play as well as they can play. But that should set up for another interesting game. So
I've said all year that there's a family of teams. It's Kentucky, Florida, Alabama. They're the same team. That's an exaggeration, because obviously the cast of characters is different, but stylistically they're the same. They like to play fast. Defense is optional some nights. But really, you look at these two teams, compare them head to head. Defensively, Alabama number 101 on the adjusted side in Ken Palm, Florida 88, but really there's no difference. It's a half point per 100 possessions. It's just a bunch of teams in that grouping that are the same. I mean, one game could flip those. They're that close on defense. Now, offensively, Alabama's about 8 points better per 100 possessions on an adjusted basis, which includes schedule, which Alabama's unquestionably played a tougher schedule than has Auburn, or than has Florida. Now, where I see a difference and when I watch these teams is on the interior. We've talked a lot about how good a rebounding team Florida is with Han Logden and Samuel and those guys. And Alabama, That's one place where, look, Alabama's a really good team. Grant Nelson's a really good 4/5 guy, whatever you want to qualify him as. But one difference is Nelson's game is different things. And if you're looking for a little bit of a separator stylistically in this matchup, I see it as what you get in the paint. Blake is shaking his head a little bit, so I'm going to let him go first.
But, I mean, Alabama dominated him last time. And, I mean, maybe domination is too much of a word, but Alabama had 33 defensive rebounds, 21 offensive rebounds.
Yeah.
I would agree with you, like, on paper. I'm with you on that. But the last time we saw these two teams play, Alabama did kind of whatever they wanted to. And once again, initial reactions, I didn't mean that in the way that, they maybe did a little bit too much what they wanted to in one particular play. But in terms of just the overall numbers, boy, this is like one of those games where you got to just like tiptoe around. But Alabama had 21 offensive rebounds last time. They were physical. I think we talked about that afterwards. Like, Alabama did not hesitate in terms of getting in there and knowing that was the strength of this Florida team. So, again, Chris, I'm not denying that on paper it definitely seems that way, and for the most of the season it's played out that way. But I will at least give Alabama a little bit of credit in that the last time they did a good job, I think, and probably one of the reasons they wound up winning the game is because they were able to kind of, again, I do think domination was too strong of a word, but I guess if you look at it from a number standpoint, they out-rebounded by 10. So that was unexpected, and I think we brought up that same kind of point going into the game last time. This time around, could it be more difficult? Sure, because it's a road game, and so I could see it being more difficult this time.
Here's a quick little stat on Alabama's road games. The totals of their last 4 road games here, crazy: 191, 212, 201, 180. It's their last 4 road games. That's been the total that it's ended at. That, I don't have my quick math average, but that's up there in the 190s, close to 200 for an average total of the past 4 games on the road for Alabama. You look at Florida, and now I know we kind of group them in this fast-paced, high-flying group of teams, but their last few home games, here's how Florida has finished on a total. They scored 83 against Mizzou, 77 against Vandy, 82 LSU, 81 Auburn. They went to OT with Georgia, but the game before that, 79 Mississippi State. This is a Florida team that they haven't reached 90 at home in a while, and this might be a game they're going to have to get to 90 based on how Alabama's been scoring. So interesting with the pace there. The faster the pace probably favors Alabama here on the road.
All right, let's get into picks, and I want to address something Blake said because he's right about the rebounding. Now, here's an interesting thing: both these are really good offensive rebounding teams. Florida is one of the best in the country, number 3 overall. I think it was number 1 a week or two ago. Alabama, number 21. Defensively, neither of these teams hard as ended as much. Alabama 242 in defensive rebounding and Florida 165. No, there's just about 1.5% difference there. Again, I think sometimes we put too much stock into the number of the ranking rather than the percentage itself.
Yeah.
But look, I think Alabama's a little better team. Again, I outlined how they're the same team defensively, but offensively, Alabama's just on a level that Florida's not. Not a ton of difference, but enough that it's clear.
Yep.
I look for reasons to make my pick easy. I still think that the rebounding thing is a little bit of a thing, but I think the bigger thing is who's at home. And if Alabama was home in a rematch, I would pick Alabama. Florida's at home this time. You look for an easy reason. I might be wrong, but that's what I'm taking. I'll go with the Gators here. Max?
Yeah, I'm honestly, normally we have a little bit different reasoning with our picks, but honestly, Chris, I have the same exact reasoning as you. Same exact. If the first game was an insane 98-93 overtime thriller, one of the best games we've been treated to all conference season. And so you ask me who I'm taking in the rematch, I'm taking the home team. It's as simple as that. We can break down Florida's rebounding or depth of size Alabama's going to have the better offense, probably a little bit more efficient. Not going to rely on offensive rebounds as much, but very capable still. I'm just going to go with the home team here. I think this is going to be a fantastic game. Ken Pom has a 3-point win for Alabama. I bet Vegas has more like a pick 'em, 50-50. Great game. I'm going to take Florida as the home team here. But like I said earlier, I would be very surprised if we get double-digit leads here in kind of, lopsided game. I think this is going to be a great game.
I think Florida winds up being the favorite in this game, no matter what Ken Pom says. I think they wind up being the favorite from a betting standpoint. I would not be surprised at all by that. Something that's not talked about enough with Florida is how good they've been at defending the three in SEC play. They've been one of the best there.
Yeah.
If you look at teams and how they've shot at 4 of 18, Missouri, Vanderbilt 5 of 22, Alabama the first time around 8 of 32, Auburn 3 of 17. A&M 4 of 15. I know some of these teams just aren't great shooting teams, but we're just pointing out the numbers here is that, Florida statistically has been pretty good at not allowing those just high volume 3-point attempts and or makes. I think the most they've had one game in SEC play where they've allowed more than 26 3-point attempts. Two. That'd be 32 against Alabama, which for Alabama, that feels low. 33 Mississippi State, which what on earth Mississippi State doing in that game? They won it, so I guess.
Well, that was when Hubbard.
Yeah, well,
17.
There's a lot. So, nonetheless, I think Florida will probably be favored in this game. I think this is, Alabama's not lost back-to-back games all season long in SEC play, but it seems like the spot, as always, is what we zone in on here, and so I will also pick Florida.
Oof.
Wow. Look what we did. You're welcome, Alabama.
All right,
Alabama fans.
Clean sweep here, Chris.
I wasn't either. You can have fun with us in the comments over that. Whatever. We don't care. We're here to have fun, and I'm going to have fun watching this game, regardless of who wins. It was a blast to watch the first time around. Elite guard play for both teams. They can both shoot. They both play a fast tempo. I like my basketball when the scores are in the 80s and the 90s or maybe a little higher. And I think that's what we're going to get. So I can't wait to watch it. We'll be here to wrap it up when it's done. Hope you'll stick around for that. For Max Barr and Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee. We are Southeastern 14, presented by BetOnline.